September 1940, London, England. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding stands at Fighter Command Headquarters, studying loss reports from the Battle of Britain. The numbers are troubling, not catastrophic, but consistently worse than they should be. "We're losing too many aircraft to interception," Dowding tells his intelligence staff. "German fighters are finding our bomber formations with suspicious accuracy. They're not patrolling randomly. They're being vectored directly to our aircraft." Wing Commander Charles Addison examines the pattern. British bombers cross the French coast at various altitudes, times and locations. Yet German fighters consistently appear at exactly the right place and altitude to intercept. "It's as if they can see our aircraft from 100 miles away," Addison observes. "They can," Dowding responds grimly. "We know they can because we can do it too. Radar. The Germans have their own radar network along the French coast. They're tracking our bombers from takeoff to target. This isn't a surprise. British intelligence has known about German radar since 1939. What's unknown is how good it is. Our chain-home radar can detect aircraft at 100 miles, notes Dr. R.V. Jones, head of scientific intelligence. But it's primitive. Large fixed stations, limited accuracy, can't determine altitude precisely. If German radar is significantly better than ours, they have a technological advantage that's costing us aircraft and pilots." "Can we determine their capabilities from aerial reconnaissance?" Dowding asks. "Photographs show antenna arrays along the coast," Jones responds. "But we can't determine performance from photos. We need to examine the actual equipment, understand how it works, what frequencies it uses, its strengths and weaknesses." "You're suggesting we steal German radar?" "Not just steal it," Jones clarifies. "Dismantle it, bring it back to Britain, analyse every component. Only then can we develop effective countermeasures, jamming, deception, tactics to defeat their radar advantage." Dowding considers. Stealing enemy technology from occupied France is an extraordinary operation. But if German radar is giving them a decisive edge in detecting British aircraft, the risk is justified. "Draft a plan," Dowding orders. "I'll present it to the chiefs of staff. If we're going to win this war, we need to understand every advantage the enemy has and take it away from them." December 1941, RAF Medmenham. Photo Reconnaissance Unit. Flight Officer Constance Babington Smith examines aerial reconnaissance photographs of the French coast through a stereoscope. She's looking for radar installations, the mysterious antennas that are guiding German fighters to British bombers with uncanny accuracy. "Here," she says, marking a location near the French village of Bruneval, 12 miles north of Le Havre. This installation is different from the others. The photographs show a large house, the Stella Maris Villa, situated on a cliff overlooking the English Channel. Nearby, clearly visible, is a distinctive radar installation. A bowl-shaped antenna, approximately 10 feet in diameter, mounted on a rotating platform. "The antenna configuration doesn't match our chain-home radar," notes Dr. Jones, examining the photos. "This is something new. Notice the parabolic shape that suggests higher frequency, which means better resolution and accuracy." Jones compares the Bruneval installation to other German radar sites photographed along the coast. Most are older Freya early warning radars, similar in concept to British chain-home. But Bruneval is different. "I believe this is a Würzburg radar," Jones explains. "Intelligence reports mention Würzburg as Germany's advanced fire control radar, used for directing anti-aircraft guns and fighters. If we're right, this radar can track aircraft with far greater precision than our systems. It's a game-changer." "The location is significant," observes Major John Frost of the Parachute Regiment, called in to assess feasibility. "Isolated villa on a cliff, small German garrison, only 12 miles from the English coast, within range of our aircraft. If you want to steal this radar, Bruneval is the target." "Can it be done?" asks Admiral Lord Louis Mountbatten, Chief of Combined Operations, the organisation responsible for commando raids. Frost studies the photographs. The villa sits 400 feet above the beach. Steep cliffs provide natural defence. A small road leads inland to the village of Bruneval, where German troops are garrisoned. The radar installation itself is fenced and guarded. It's possible, Frost concludes. Parachute insertion at night, land a few hundred yards inland, assault the villa, capture the radar, dismantle key components, withdraw to the beach, evacuate by landing craft. In and out before German reinforcements arrive. How many men? A company, 120 paratroopers. We'll need specialists, radar technicians who know what to look for, sappers to dismantle equipment, naval support for evacuation. How long will you need on the ground? 30 minutes to secure the objective, 30 minutes to dismantle the radar, 30 minutes to reach the beach and evacuate. 90 minutes total, assuming everything goes perfectly. Mountbatten looks at Jones. Is this radar worth the risk? We'll be sending 120 men into occupied France. Some won't come back. If German radar is as advanced as I believe, Jones responds, it's giving them an intelligence advantage worth dozens of aircraft and hundreds of lives. Understanding this technology could change the course of the air war. Yes, it's worth the risk. Then we'll do it, Mountbatten decides. Operation Biting. Target, Bruneval radar installation. Objective, capture components and bring them back for analysis. One more thing, Jones adds. We'll need a radar expert to accompany the raid. Someone who can identify critical components under fire, determine what to take and what to leave. The paratroopers won't know a magnetron from a doorknob. You volunteering? Mountbatten asks with a slight smile. God no, I'm far too valuable to risk, Jones laughs. But I know someone perfect for the job. Flight Sergeant C.W.H. Cox, radar mechanic, brilliant technician, utterly fearless. He's been maintaining our chain home stations. He'll know what to look for. Can he parachute? He'll learn. January 1942. RAF Ringway Parachute Training School. Flight Sergeant Charles Cox, radar technician, age 26, no combat experience, stands at the door of a Bristol Bombay transport aircraft at 800 feet altitude, preparing for his first parachute jump. You volunteered for this, shouts the jump master over the engine noise. Not exactly, Cox yells back. They told me I was volunteering. Then they explained I'd be jumping into France to steal German radar. I pointed out I'd never parachuted before. They said I'd learn. And here you are, learning. Remember, exit clean, count to 3, check your canopy. If it doesn't open, pull your reserve. If that doesn't open, you've got the rest of your life to figure it out. Comforting. Go! Cox jumps. The slipstream catches him, tumbling him violently. He counts 1, 2, 3, and feels the shock as his parachute deploys. Looking up, he sees a fully inflated canopy. Well, that part worked, Cox mutters. The ground approaches rapidly. Cox remembers the training. Feet together, knees bent, roll on impact. He hits hard, rolls awkwardly, and lies on the ground gasping. You're alive, notes the training sergeant. That counts as success. Do it 5 more times and you're qualified for operational jumps. Over the next 3 weeks, Cox completes parachute training, while simultaneously studying everything British intelligence knows about German radar. German radar intelligence, January 1942. Freya early warning radar. Frequency, 120 to 150 MHz. Range, 100 plus miles. Functions, long-range aircraft detection. Limitations, poor altitude determination, limited accuracy. Würzburg fire control radar. Frequency, estimated 500 to 600 MHz, unconfirmed. Range, estimated 20 to 30 miles, unconfirmed. Functions, precise tracking of individual aircraft for fighter direction and anti-aircraft fire. Key unknown, how does it achieve superior accuracy? The Würzburg is the mystery, Dr. Jones explains to Cox. We believe it uses higher frequencies than our radars, which would give better resolution. But we don't know the transmitter design, the receiver configuration, the antenna specifics. That's what you're going to find out. What exactly am I looking for? Jones provides a prioritized list. Critical contents, priority order. Transmitter tube, magnetron or klystron. This generates the radar pulse. Frequency and power determine radar performance. Highest priority. Receiver components, how the radar detects reflected signals. Sensitivity determines minimum target size detectable. Antenna assembly. Dish design, rotation mechanism, elevation control. determines beam width and scanning capability. Control systems, how operators use the radar, displays, ranging mechanisms, target tracking. Any documentation, operating manuals, maintenance logs, technical specifications. You'll have maybe 30 minutes, Jones emphasizes. German reinforcements will be responding. You need to identify the most critical components, remove them without destroying them, and get them on the evacuation boats. If you have to choose between more components and getting out alive, choose getting out alive, but bring that transmitter tube. Without it, the entire operation is wasted. Cox studies photographs of the WWII installation. The radar sits on a concrete platform beside the villa. The antenna is exposed, easy to access, but the transmitter, receiver, and control systems are housed in equipment cabinets. He'll need tools. Wrenches, screwdrivers, bolt cutters, Cox lists. Plus flashlight for working inside equipment cabinets, and ideally wire cutters and tape for disconnecting electrical connections without damaging components. You'll carry it all in a pack, Frost tells him. Plus parachute, weapon, ammunition, emergency rations. Total load about 80 pounds. Think you can fight with that? I'm not planning to fight, Cox responds. I'm planning to steal radar components while Royal Marines do the fighting. Good plan. Stick to it. February 1942. Final planning. The operation plan develops over 6 weeks of intensive preparation. Operation Biting, execution plan. Force composition. C Company, 2nd Parachute Battalion, 120 paratroopers. Flight Sergeant C.W.H. Cox, radar specialist. Sappers, Royal Engineers. Demolition experts to assist dismantling. Naval support, 6 landing craft to evacuate force from beach. Timeline, H-hour, 2200. Parachute drop 2 kilometers from objective. H+, 15 minutes. Assault force reaches villa, engages guards. H+, 30 minutes. Villa secured. Cox begins dismantling radar. H+, 60 minutes. Dismantling complete. Force withdraws to beach. H+, 90 minutes. Naval landing craft arrive. Evacuation begins. H+, 120 minutes. All personnel evacuated. Return to England. Drop zones. DZ-1, Nelson. Main force, 2 kilometers inland. Assault teams advance to villa on foot, avoiding roads. Assault groups. Nelson. Main assault force, 40 men. Secure villa and radar. Rodney. Flank security, 40 men. Block German reinforcements from WWII village. Drake. Beach security, 30 men. Secure evacuation beach, clear German defences. Hardy. Reserve, 10 men. Support as needed. Contingencies. If radar cannot be dismantled, destroy with explosives, deny to enemy. If casualties too heavy, abort mission, destroy radar, evacuate survivors. If landing craft don't arrive, withdraw inland, evade to neutral territory, unlikely to succeed. Major Frost briefs his company. Most are veterans of earlier parachute operations, but this is different, a precision raid with a specific technical objective. We're not there to fight Germans, Frost emphasizes. We're there to steal their radar. Fight only enough to accomplish the mission. Speed is survival. Get in, grab it, get out. Flight Sergeant Cox briefs on the radar. I'll need 30 minutes minimum inside the equipment, longer if the components are secured with anti-tamper devices. Your job is to keep Germans away from me while I work. I'll be completely focused on the equipment. I'm relying on you to keep me alive. Don't worry, one paratrooper jokes. We've got a big investment in your training. We're not letting Germans shoot you before you steal their radar. The date is set, February 27th, 1942. Moon phase optimal for night operations. Weather forecast acceptable. Intelligence reports minimal German garrison at WWII, approximately 30 soldiers. One more thing, Jones tells Cox privately. The Germans will know immediately that we've stolen their radar. They'll change frequencies, upgrade their systems, implement new security. This is a one-time opportunity. Whatever we learn from WWII components is all we'll get. Make it count. February 27th, 1942, 2,145 hours. RAF Thruxton Airfield, England. 12 Armstrong Whitworth Whitley bombers sit on the runway, engines warming up. Each aircraft carries 10 paratroopers, 120 men of C Company, 2nd Parachute Battalion, plus Flight Sergeant Cox. Major John Frost walks among his men, conducting final checks. The paratroopers are heavily loaded: weapons, ammunition, grenades, tools, emergency rations, radios. Each man carries approximately 80 pounds of equipment. "Remember the drill," Frost tells Nelson's section, the assault group that will capture the villa. "We land, assemble at the RV point, advance to the objective. Speed and silence. The Germans don't know we're coming. Let's keep it that way as long as possible." Flight Sergeant Cox checks his equipment one final time. Toolbox with wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers, wire cutters, flashlight with red lens to preserve night vision, canvas bags for components, bolt cutters for cables, Sten gun and ammunition, which Cox hopes he won't need to use. "Ever fire that weapon?" asks Private Charlie McIntyre, assigned as Cox's security. "Qualified on the range," Cox responds. "Never fired at anyone." "Let's hope tonight's not your first time. Stay close to me. If shooting starts, get down and let us handle it. You just focus on stealing the radar." At 2200 hours, the Whitleys take off in sequence. The flight across the English Channel takes 35 minutes. Below, the dark water reflects moonlight. The French coast appears ahead, a thin line of darkness against darker sea. The formation reaches the drop zone, open fields 2 kilometres inland from Bruneval. The paratroopers can see the villa on the cliff and the distinctive bowl-shaped radar antenna silhouetted against the sky. "Red light!" shouts the dispatcher. The paratroopers stand, hook their static lines to the cable running the length of the aircraft. "Green light! Go!" The first man exits, then the second, then the third. In 10 seconds, all 10 men from the first aircraft are falling through the night sky. Cox's aircraft approaches the drop zone. "Stand up! Hook up!" Cox hooks his static line, checks it twice. His heart is hammering. Training jumps were one thing. This is jumping into occupied France, into combat. "Go!" Cox steps into the void. The slipstream catches him, spinning him violently. 1, 2, 3. The parachute deploys with a shock. Suddenly, silence. Just wind and the distant sound of aircraft engines. Below, the ground approaches. Cox sees other parachutes descending around him. He spots the villa and the radar installation. The objective is less than a mile away. Cox hits the ground hard, rolls and starts gathering his parachute. Around him, other paratroopers are landing, collecting equipment, assembling into sections. But something is wrong. Cox hears shooting, sharp cracks of rifle fire from the direction of the villa. "They know we're here already," mutters Private McIntyre. So much for surprise. February 27th, 1942, 2215 hours, DZ Nelson. Major Frost assembles his assault group. The drop was scattered. Men landed across several hundred yards. It takes 10 minutes to gather everyone, and the element of surprise is gone. German guards at the villa heard the aircraft and are now alert. "Nelson section, on me," Frost orders. "Rodney, move to block Bruneval village. Drake, get to the beach and secure it. No time for finesse. We go in hard and fast." The assault group advances toward the villa at a run. German sentries open fire from the grounds. British paratroopers return fire, the distinctive rapid chatter of Sten guns cutting through the night. Lieutenant Ewan Charteris leads the point section. "Germans in the pillbox by the gate, covering the approach." "Grenades!" Frost orders. 2 paratroopers lob grenades at the pillbox. The explosions silence the German fire. Charteris's section rushes the gate, kicks it open, and storms into the compound. More German soldiers emerge from the villa, firing rifles. The paratroopers suppress them with Sten gun fire. 2 Germans fall, the others retreat into the villa. "Clear the building!" Frost shouts. Paratroopers storm through the front door. Room by room fighting erupts inside. Grenades, submachine gun fire, close quarters combat in darkness. After 5 minutes of savage fighting, the villa is secured. 4 German soldiers are captured, 3 are dead. 2 British paratroopers are wounded. But the objective isn't the villa. It's the radar installation, 50 yards away on the cliff edge. "Cox, get on that radar. We've got maybe 20 minutes before German reinforcements arrive." Flight Sergeant Cox runs toward the radar installation, Private McIntyre covering him. The radar sits on a concrete platform, its parabolic antenna pointing skyward. The equipment cabinets are housed in a small concrete bunker beside the antenna. Cox pulls out his flashlight and examines the installation. It's more sophisticated than he expected. The antenna mount is precision engineered, the equipment cabinets are sealed against weather, and there are cables everywhere. "Right," Cox mutters. "Let's see what you've got." February 27th, 1942, 2,230 hours. The Würzburg radar. Cox opens the main equipment cabinet. Inside, illuminated by his red-filtered flashlight, is the heart of the German radar. Transmitter, receiver, control systems, power supplies, all mounted on a framework of precision engineering. "Beautiful," Cox whispers. Despite the circumstances, combat raging nearby, Germans counter-attacking, time running out, he can't help but admire the engineering. The transmitter assembly is immediately recognizable, a cavity magnetron, the device that generates the high-frequency radar pulse. Cox photographs it quickly with a miniature camera, then begins disconnecting it. "How long?" asks McIntyre, nervously watching the perimeter. 10 minutes just for the transmitter," Cox responds. "I need to disconnect power, remove mounting bolts, extract it without damaging components. This is precision equipment. You can't just rip it out." German rifle fire cracks from the direction of Bruneval village. Rodney section is engaged with German reinforcements attempting to reach the villa. "Work faster," McIntyre urges. Cox forces himself to stay methodical. Rushing will damage components. He disconnects power cables, carefully labels each connection, removes mounting bolts one at a time. The magnetron comes free. He wraps it in cloth and places it in his canvas bag. One down, now the receiver. The receiver assembly is more complex. Multiple vacuum tubes, circuit boards, precision wiring. Cox can't take all of it. He selects the most critical components: the mixer stage where received signals are processed, the amplifier tubes, the crystal detector. "Cox!" Frost appears at the bunker entrance. "German reinforcements are arriving, at least a platoon from the village. We've got 10 minutes, maybe less, before we're overrun. What do you have?" "Magnetron, that's the transmitter. Key receiver components. I need 5 more minutes for the antenna feed assembly and control systems." "You've got 3 minutes. After that, we blow it and withdraw." Cox works frantically. He photographs the antenna assembly, the parabolic dish, the feed horn, the rotation mechanism. He disconnects the waveguide assembly that carries signals from the transmitter to the antenna. He grabs a control panel showing frequency settings. Behind him, the firefight intensifies. German mortars begin landing near the villa. A section of roof collapses from a direct hit. "Time's up," Frost shouts. "Sappers! Demolition charges on the remaining equipment. Cox, get to the beach, now!" Royal Engineer sappers rush in, placing explosive charges throughout the radar installation. Cox grabs his canvas bags, now heavy with components, and runs toward the cliff path that leads to the beach. Behind him, demolition charges detonate. The Würzburg radar installation, minus the components Cox has stolen, erupts in a ball of flame. The antenna topples, the equipment cabinets disintegrate, the concrete bunker cracks. "That's for good measure," Frost mutters. "Even if we don't make it out, they won't be using that radar again." February 27th, 1942, 2300 hours, Bruneval Beach. The withdrawal to the beach is chaos. Rodney section is fighting a rearguard action against German reinforcements. Casualties are mounting. 2 paratroopers killed, 7 wounded, including Lieutenant Charteris, who took a rifle round through the shoulder. The cliff path down to the beach is steep and treacherous in darkness. Men slip on loose rocks, some tumbling several feet before catching themselves. The wounded must be carried on improvised stretchers. Cox, carrying his precious bags of radar components, struggles down the path. The bags weigh 40 pounds combined. Manageable on flat ground, exhausting while descending a cliff under fire. Drake section, which secured the beach earlier, has grim news. German pillboxes cover the beach from both flanks. They've suppressed the pillboxes with covering fire, but Germans inside are still active. Worse news, the landing craft that should be waiting offshore are nowhere to be seen. "Where are the boats?" Frost demands, scanning the dark water. "No signal, sir," reports the radio operator. "They should be here by now." Frost checks his watch. 23:10 hours. The landing craft was scheduled to arrive at 2300 hours. They're late. German fire from the cliff top is increasing. The paratroopers are pinned on the beach. Germans above, sea behind, and no evacuation. "We're trapped," realises Lieutenant Peter Young, commanding Rodney section. "If those boats don't show up, we'll have to surrender or swim for England." Frost fires a signal flare, the pre-arranged recognition signal for the naval force. The flare arcs into the sky, burning bright red. No response from the sea. Just darkness and the sound of waves. "Fire another," Frost orders. A second flare rises. Still nothing. German reinforcements are arriving on the cliff top. Mortar fire begins impacting the beach. The paratroopers are running out of time. Then, faintly, engine sounds from the sea. Low rumble of diesel engines. "There!" someone points. 6 dark shapes are approaching through the darkness. Landing craft, their bows riding low in the swell. "About bloody time!" Frost shouts. The landing craft beach. Ramps drop. "Everyone in! Wounded first!" Paratroopers carry wounded comrades aboard. Cox, clutching his bags of radar components, wades through waist-deep water and scrambles aboard a landing craft. German fire from the pillboxes rakes the beach. One landing craft takes hits, its coxswain wounded. A paratrooper manning a Bren gun on the craft returns fire, suppressing the German position. "Cast off!" The landing craft reverse off the beach, engines roaring. German tracers chase them into the darkness. One craft takes more hits but remains operational. Frost counts heads. 120 men dropped. Now aboard the landing craft. 2 killed, bodies recovered. 6 wounded seriously, 7 wounded lightly, 105 unhurt. And Flight Sergeant Cox with his bags of stolen radar components. "Mission accomplished," Frost says quietly. "We got what we came for." The landing craft rendezvous with HMS Prinz Albert, the command ship, 5 miles offshore. The paratroopers climb aboard, exhausted, exhilarated, alive. Cox hands his canvas bags to a naval officer. "Würzburg radar components. Handle carefully. These just cost 2 men's lives to capture." February 28, 1942. 0400 hours. Portsmouth, England. The raiding force arrives at Portsmouth Naval Base in darkness. Ambulances wait to evacuate the wounded. Intelligence officers wait to debrief the assault force, and Dr. R.V. Jones waits anxiously to examine what Cox brought back. Cox opens the canvas bags. Jones examines the contents. Captured components. Cavity magnetron transmitter. Intact, functional. Generates radar pulse at approximately 560 MHz. Higher frequency than British systems, explaining superior resolution. Mixer assembly. Receiver. Critical receiver stage showing advanced crystal detector technology. Waveguide sections, proving Germans have mastered high-frequency waveguide technology. Control panels, showing operating frequency ranges and technical specifications. Documentation, operator's manual, partial, and maintenance notes found in the villa. Photographs, 35 images of antenna assembly, equipment layout, and installation details. "My God," Jones breathes. "This is everything. This is the Würzburg, all its secrets laid bare." "Was it worth 2 men's lives?" Cox asks quietly. Jones considers the question carefully. "I don't know yet, but I intend to make damn sure it is. We'll analyse every component, understand every design choice, develop countermeasures that will save hundreds of aircrew. That's how we honour the men we lost, by using what they died to capture." March 1942. Royal Aircraft Establishment, Farnborough. Over the next 2 weeks, British scientists disassemble and analyse the Würzburg components. What they discover revolutionises British understanding of German radar technology. Würzburg technical analysis. Frequency, 560 MHz, confirmed. Much higher than British chain home, 20 to 30 MHz. Higher frequency equals shorter wavelength equals better resolution. Explains ability to track individual aircraft precisely. Magnetron design. Cavity magnetron, advanced design. More efficient than British Klystron transmitters, higher power output, more reliable operation. British immediately begin developing similar magnetrons for own radars. Antenna system, parabolic dish, 3-meter diameter, creates narrow, focused beam, allows precise determination of target bearing and elevation. Rotation mechanism allows rapid scanning. British adopt similar design for future radars. Range, approximately 30 kilometers, 20 miles. Shorter range than early warning radars, but much more accurate, can guide fighters within visual range of targets. Confirms role as fire control radar, not early warning. Limitations identified. Single target tracking. Würzburg can only track one aircraft at a time. Rotation speed limits. Takes 30 seconds for full 360-degree scan. Low altitude limitation. Ground clutter obscures targets below 500 feet. Weather sensitivity. Performance degrades in heavy rain. The Würzburg is sophisticated, Dr. Jones concludes, but not invincible. Now we know its weaknesses. April 1942, RAF Bomber Command. The Würzburg analysis leads to immediate tactical changes. Countermeasure 1. Window. Chaff. Understanding the Würzburg's operating frequency allows development of aluminum strips cut to specific lengths. When dropped from aircraft, these strips create false radar returns, swamping German radar screens with hundreds of phantom targets. We're literally blinding their radar, explains Dr. Robert Cockburn, developing the countermeasure. A single bomber can drop enough window to create returns equivalent to 100 aircraft. German radar operators won't be able to distinguish real bombers from false echoes. Countermeasure 2. Low-level tactics. Knowing the Würzburg cannot track aircraft below 500 feet, Bomber Command develops new low-level attack profiles for specific targets. We can't fly entire missions at 500 feet, too vulnerable to light flak, notes Air Vice Marshal Robert Saundby. But for the critical minutes approaching high-value targets, drop to 500 feet and you disappear from German radar. Countermeasure 3. Electronic warfare. Understanding Würzburg frequency and design allows development of jamming equipment tuned specifically to disrupt German radar. Dedicated jamming aircraft, equipped with powerful transmitters operating on Würzburg frequencies, can create electronic interference that renders the radars useless. We're turning their technological advantage into a vulnerability, Jones observes. Because we understand the system, we can defeat it. June 1942, Berlin, Germany. General Wolfgang Martini, head of Luftwaffe Signals Intelligence, stands before Hermann Göring, Reichsmarschall and commander of the Luftwaffe, delivering a report Göring does not want to hear. The British raid on Bruneval was not a random commando operation, Martini explains. They specifically targeted our Würzburg radar installation. They knew what it was, where it was located, and what they wanted to steal. How much did they get? Göring demands. Everything that mattered. The transmitter, receiver components, antenna assembly, operating manuals. Enough to completely understand the system. Göring's face reddens. You're telling me the British now know all of our radar's secrets? Yes, Herr Reichsmarschall, and they will develop countermeasures. Jamming, deception, tactics to exploit weaknesses. Our radar advantage is gone. Then upgrade the radars, change frequencies, deploy new systems. We're already doing that, Martini responds. But it takes time. 6 months to redesign systems, a year to manufacture and deploy enough units to replace existing installations. Meanwhile, the British will be jamming our current radars. What about security? Göring's anger is building. How did the British know about Bruneval? How did they know the Würzburg was there? Aerial reconnaissance. Our installations are visible from the air. We've been careless about camouflage. The British have been systematically photographing the entire French coast, cataloguing every radar installation. Göring slams his fist on the table. Then make them invisible. Camouflage them. Build decoys. Do whatever it takes to prevent another Bruneval. But Martini knows the truth. The damage is done. The British have stolen Germany's radar secrets. No amount of camouflage or security can undo that. July 1942, RAF Bomber Command Headquarters. Air Chief Marshal Arthur Bomber Harris, commander of RAF Bomber Command, reviews the first operational use of window, the aluminum chaff developed from Würzburg analysis. Operation Gomorrah, the bombing of Hamburg. The mission plan includes massive deployment of window to blind German radar. Each bomber will carry bundles of aluminium strips, explains Group Captain Sidney Bufton. Crews will drop bundles every minute during the approach to Hamburg. The German radar screens will be saturated with false returns. They won't be able to vector fighters to intercept our bombers. And this works? Harris asks. We've tested it extensively. The Würzburg components from Bruneval told us exactly what frequency and dimensions to use. German radar will see thousands of aircraft where only hundreds exist. Their entire air defense system will be paralyzed. The first Hamburg raid launches July 24, 1943. More than a year after Bruneval, the time required to develop and produce window in sufficient quantities. 792 bombers approach Hamburg. As they cross the German coast, crews begin throwing out bundles of window, thousands of aluminium strips tumbling through the air, each creating a radar return. On the ground, German radar operators stare at their screens in confusion. Where there should be distinct returns from individual aircraft, there are thousands of targets, swirling, overlapping, impossible to track. "We can't see anything," reports one radar station. "The screen is completely saturated." German fighter controllers cannot vector fighters to intercept. Anti-aircraft batteries cannot track targets for fire control. The British bombers reach Hamburg almost unopposed. The raid is devastating. 2,396 tons of bombs dropped, creating a firestorm that kills 42,000 German civilians and destroys 16,000 buildings. More importantly for military strategy, German losses are catastrophic. Only 12 bombers shot down out of 792, a loss rate of 1.5%, far below the usual 5 to 7%. Window works, Harris reports to the Air Ministry. German radar is effectively useless. We can now bomb targets with acceptable losses. Over the next 6 months, window is deployed on every major bombing raid. German losses of British bombers dropped by 75% compared to pre-window operations. The Bruneval raid paid for itself 100 times over, Dr. Jones observes. 2 men died to capture those radar components, but those components led to window, which has saved hundreds of bombers and thousands of aircrew. The mathematics of intelligence warfare are brutal but clear. August 1943, Peenemünde, Germany. The Bruneval raid establishes a precedent. British intelligence will not just observe German technology from afar, they will steal it when necessary. August 1943, RAF Bomber Command attacks Peenemünde, Germany's secret rocket development facility. The raid is guided by precise intelligence about the facility's layout, production buildings, and testing areas. "How did we get this intelligence?" asks the lead navigator. "Reconnaissance aircraft," he's told. But that's not the complete truth. The reality. British intelligence has multiple sources inside Peenemünde, German scientists and engineers who oppose the Nazi regime and quietly pass information to the Allies through neutral countries. Additionally, Polish resistance fighters have recovered wreckage from crashed V-2 rockets, photographed components, and smuggled the intelligence to Britain via underground networks. "We're not just stealing German technology anymore," notes Stuart Menzies, head of MI6. "We're recruiting their scientists, exploiting their failures, building an intelligence network inside their most secret programs. Bruneval showed us the value of captured technology. Now we're going after everything." September 1943. The Boffin Brigade. The success of Bruneval leads to creation of specialized intelligence units combining scientists and soldiers. 30 Assault Unit, Royal Navy. Commando unit specifically tasked with capturing enemy technology. Led by Commander Ian Fleming, later author of James Bond novels, they follow advancing Allied armies, seizing German equipment before it can be destroyed. T-Force, British Army. Intelligence unit targeting German scientific and industrial facilities. Captures factories, laboratories, research centres intact, along with documents and personnel. CIOS, Combined Intelligence Objectives Subcommittee. Allied organisation coordinating technology capture operations, maintains target lists of high-value German facilities, equipment and scientists. These units operate on the principle established at Bruneval. Captured technology is worth the risk. They conduct raids, seize equipment, interrogate scientists, and ship everything back to Allied laboratories for analysis. The haul is staggering. Captured German technology, 1943 to 1945. V2 rocket components and documentation. Jet engine prototypes, Jumo 004, BMW 003. Advanced submarine designs, Type 21 U-boat. Guided missile systems, Fritz X, HS-293. Infrared night vision equipment. Acoustic torpedoes. Nerve gas formulas, captured but never used. Thousands of scientists and engineers, recruited or detained. We're strip mining German technology, observes Professor R.V. Jones. Everything they've developed, we're taking it. Bruneval was the proof of concept. Now it's doctrine. November 1943, the German response. Germany responds to technology theft with increased security. Security measures, 1943 to 1945. Camouflage. All radar installations camouflaged or disguised as civilian structures. Decoys. False installations built to mislead reconnaissance. Dispersal. Critical equipment distributed across multiple sites. Demolition protocols. All facilities wired for rapid destruction if threatened. Personnel restrictions. Scientists and engineers forbidden to travel to forward areas. Document security. Technical manuals removed from operational units. But these measures come too late and are incomplete. Allied intelligence has already penetrated deeply into German technological secrets, and as the war turns against Germany, security becomes impossible to maintain. We're trying to protect secrets while losing the war, laments General Martini. Every facility we lose means more technology captured. Every scientist who defects means more intelligence compromised. We can't win both the military war and the intelligence war simultaneously. January 1944. Operation Overlord Planning. The Bruneval raid's intelligence proves crucial to D-Day planning. Understanding German radar capabilities allows Allied planners to develop comprehensive deception operations. Operation Fortitude. Massive deception operation convincing Germans the invasion will target Pas-de-Calais instead of Normandy. Uses fake radio traffic, dummy equipment, and controlled leaks through double agents. But the deception is enhanced by electronic warfare, based on Würzburg intelligence. Naval deception. Ships towing radar reflectors create false fleet signatures on German radar, suggesting invasion forces are heading toward Calais. Airborne deception. Bombers dropping window in specific patterns create radar signatures resembling airborne divisions, drawing German attention away from actual drop zones. Timing deception. Electronic jamming of German radar increases steadily for weeks before D-Day, peaking on the invasion date, preventing Germans from distinguishing real invasion from false signals. Without understanding German radar, none of this would work, notes General Dwight Eisenhower during planning. We'd be invading blind, hoping their radar can't detect our forces. Instead, we're invading with full knowledge of their capabilities and specific countermeasures for each system. That's the difference between a risky gamble and a calculated operation. June 6, 1944. D-Day succeeds. German radar is effectively blinded by window and jamming. German coastal defense forces are surprised by the invasion location and cannot coordinate effective response. The Bruneval raid contributed to D-Day success, Churchill later writes in his memoirs. That single night's work in February 1942 began a chain of intelligence gathering and technological understanding that paid dividends throughout the war. May 1945. War's end. As Germany collapses, Allied technical intelligence units race to capture remaining technology before the Soviets seize it. Operation Paperclip. US operation to capture German scientists and engineers, particularly rocket specialists. Over 1,600 German scientists are recruited to work for the United States, including Wernher von Braun and his entire V2 rocket team. Operation Surgeon. British operation to capture German jet engine technology and scientists. Entire jet engine manufacturing facilities are disassembled and shipped to Britain. T-Force operations. Dozens of raids capturing German radar facilities, electronics laboratories, and communication centers before Soviet forces arrive. The competition with the Soviets is fierce. At some locations, British and American teams arrive just hours before Soviet forces, hastily loading equipment onto trucks while Russian soldiers approach. It's like Bruneval on an industrial scale, notes one T-Force officer. Except now we're not raiding enemy territory, we're looting defeated Germany before our Soviet allies get there first. The hall reshapes post-war technology. German technology influence, post-war. Rocketry. V2 technology directly leads to US and Soviet space programs. German rocket scientists become leaders of NASA and Soviet Space Agency. Jet engines. German jet engine designs influence British and American jet development for decades. Electronics. German radar and radio technology advances Allied electronics by years. Aerodynamics. German swept-wing research shapes fighter and airliner design through 1960s. Submarines. Type 21 U-boat design influences submarine development globally. We won the war militarily, observes Professor Jones in 1946. But we're winning the peace technologically, by capturing and exploiting everything Germany developed. Bruneval taught us the value of enemy technology. We've been applying that lesson systematically ever since. Section 4. The Legacy. London, England. Flight Sergeant C.W.H. Cox, now demobilised from the RAF, visits the Science Museum in London. There, in a display case, sits a component he recognises immediately. The Würzburg magnetron he pulled from the radar installation at Bruneval 5 years earlier. The display placard reads, German Würzburg radar magnetron. Captured February 27, 1942, Operation Biting. This component revealed German radar technology secrets, leading to development of Allied countermeasures that saved thousands of aircrew lives. Cox stares at the magnetron, the device he spent 30 terrifying minutes disconnecting while German mortars fell around him. The component he carried down a cliff while bullets whined overhead. The piece of metal that cost 2 men their lives to capture. Was it worth it? Asks his wife standing beside him. Cox thinks about the window countermeasure that blinded German radar, the thousands of bomber crews who survived missions that would have been suicide without electronic warfare, the D-Day deception that succeeded because Allies understood German radar capabilities, the technological advantage that helped win the war. Yes, Cox says simply, it was worth it. But privately, he thinks about Private Charlie McIntyre, shot through the chest during the withdrawal from Bruneval, dead before they reached the beach, and Sergeant James Grieve, killed by German mortar fire covering the evacuation. 2 men who didn't live to see what their raid accomplished. They should be remembered, Cox says quietly, not just the raid but what it led to, the intelligence chain that began with Bruneval and ended with Allied victory. That's their legacy. Royal Air Force Museum opens. The RAF Museum at Hendon opens a permanent exhibition, Operation Biting, the Bruneval Raid. The centrepiece is a detailed model of the Würzburg radar installation, alongside actual components captured during the raid. Veterans of the operation attend the opening. Major John Frost, now a colonel, gives a speech. Bruneval was different from other commando raids. We weren't there to kill Germans or destroy infrastructure. We were there to steal knowledge. That required a different kind of courage, not just fighting, but thinking under fire. Flight Sergeant Cox, who joined us tonight, demonstrated that courage. While bullets flew and mortars exploded, he calmly dismantled German radar, identifying critical components, ensuring nothing was damaged during extraction. That's a special kind of bravery, the courage to think clearly when every instinct says run. Cox, embarrassed by the attention, deflects. I was just doing my job. The real heroes were the paratroopers who protected me while I worked. I had the easy task. They had to fight Germans. But Frost shakes his head. We were trained to fight. You were trained to repair radars. Yet you parachuted into France, worked under fire, and extracted components that changed the war. That's adaptability and courage combined. Bruneval Memorial. The French government erects a memorial at Bruneval commemorating the raid. The monument, positioned near where the villa once stood, destroyed during the war, lists the names of the 120 paratroopers who participated, with special notation for the 2 killed in action. The dedication ceremony includes British, French and Canadian veterans. Canadian paratroopers participated in the raid. General Charles de Gaulle delivers remarks. The Bruneval raid demonstrated that intelligence and audacity can defeat superior forces. A single night's work, capturing 1 radar installation, led to countermeasures that saved thousands of lives and contributed to Allied victory. This is the power of knowledge applied with courage. French villagers who lived through the raid share their memories. They remember the sound of aircraft overhead, parachutes descending in moonlight, gunfire from the villa, and then silence. By morning, the Germans were gone, the villa damaged, the radar destroyed. They didn't know what happened until after the war. "We thought it was just another commando raid," recalls one villager. "We didn't know they'd stolen German technology. We didn't know it mattered so much." 40th anniversary. The 40th anniversary of the Bruneval raid brings renewed interest. Television documentaries, newspaper articles, academic studies all examine Operation Biting and its impact. Historians debate the raid's significance. Historical assessment, 1982. Military impact. Captured technology led directly to window chaff development. Electronic warfare capabilities reduced bomber losses by 75%. Estimated 5,000+ aircrew lives saved by radar countermeasures. D-Day deception operations enabled by understanding German radar. Intelligence impact. Established doctrine of technology capture operations. Led to creation of specialized technical intelligence units. Proved enemy technology could be analyzed and defeated. Set precedent for post-war Operation Paperclip and technology exploitation. Strategic impact. Demonstrated vulnerability of advanced technology to commando raids. Forced Germany to divert resources to security instead of development. Accelerated Allied technological development by providing German designs to study. Created psychological impact. Germans knew their secrets were vulnerable. Cost-benefit analysis. 2 killed, 7 wounded to capture technology. Resulting countermeasures saved 5,000+ lives. Return on investment. 2,500 to 1 in lives alone, not counting strategic value of understanding German radar capabilities. Bruneval was one of the most successful small unit operations of the war, concludes military historian John Keegan, not because of casualties inflicted or territory captured, but because of knowledge gained. That knowledge multiplied through the intelligence system, leading to technological advantages that affected every subsequent operation. Imperial War Museum Technical Collection. Dr. Alfred Price, RAF veteran, historian and electronics warfare specialist, examines the Würzburg magnetron captured at Bruneval, now permanently housed in the Imperial War Museum's technical collection. He's writing a comprehensive study of the raid's technological impact. This single component, Price explains to a BBC documentary crew, represents a quantum leap in British understanding of German radar. Let me show you why it mattered so much. He opens a technical diagram comparing British and German radar technology circa February 1942. British chain home radar, 1942. Frequency, 20 to 30 MHz, long wavelength. Range, 100+ miles, excellent for early warning. Accuracy, ± 3 degrees bearing, ± 1,500 feet altitude, very poor. Antenna, fixed towers 360 feet tall, immobile, vulnerable. Target resolution, cannot distinguish individual aircraft in formation. Minimum detection, cannot detect aircraft below 500 feet. Chain home could see Germans coming from far away, Price explains, but it couldn't tell us exactly where they were, what altitude, or how many aircraft. It was like seeing car headlights approaching from miles away. You know something's coming, but you don't know if it's 1 car or 10. German Würzburg radar, 1942. Frequency, 560 MHz, short wavelength. Range, 20 miles, shorter but adequate for fire control. Accuracy, ± 0.2 degrees bearing, ± 80 feet altitude, extremely precise. Antenna, mobile parabolic dish 10 feet diameter, can be moved, camouflaged. Target resolution can track individual aircraft separately. Minimum detection can track aircraft down to 500 feet altitude. The Würzburg was a sniper rifle compared to Chainholm's shotgun, Price continues. It couldn't see as far, but what it could see, it saw with deadly precision. German controllers could guide fighters to within visual range of British bombers. That's why our losses were so high before we understood this system. The magnetron mystery. Price focuses on the captured magnetron, the heart of the Würzburg's superiority. This device generates the radar pulse, he explains, pointing to the cavity magnetron's distinctive structure. It's a vacuum tube, but unlike traditional tubes, it uses resonant cavities, these holes drilled into a copper block, to generate extremely high frequencies. He displays cross-section diagrams. Traditional radar transmitters in 1942 used klystron tubes, which could only generate frequencies up to about 200 MHz. The cavity magnetron can generate 500 to 600 MHz, nearly 3 times higher. Higher frequency means shorter wavelength, which means better resolution and more accurate tracking. When British scientists examined this magnetron after Brunewald, they were shocked. We'd been working on cavity magnetrons since 1940. It was actually a British invention, but we thought the Germans were years behind us. This captured magnetron proved they'd not only caught up, they'd independently developed sophisticated designs we hadn't considered. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Britain had invented the cavity magnetron in 1940, shared the technology with America to develop radar for the US military, but hadn't realized Germany had also mastered the technology until Brunewald. It was a wake-up call, Price states. We were in a technological race we didn't know we were losing. Brunewald showed us the Germans were more advanced than we'd assumed. The window solution. Price explains how the captured Würzburg led directly to the window countermeasure. Once we knew the Würzburg's operating frequency, 560 MHz, we could calculate the exact dimensions of aluminum strips that would create maximum radar reflection at that frequency. He shows the calculation. Window, chaff, dimensions. Wavelength at 560 MHz equals 53.6 centimeters. Optimal reflector length equals half wavelength equals 26.8 centimeters. Strip width equals 1.5 centimeters for structural strength. Material equals aluminum foil, highly reflective. Each strip acts like a tiny mirror for radar waves, Price explains. When a bomber drops thousands of these strips, each one creates a radar return similar to an aircraft. The German radar screen fills with false targets, making it impossible to track real bombers. He displays photographs from German radar operators showing the effect. Before window, clear radar scope showing distinct aircraft returns. After window, radar scope completely saturated with overlapping returns, impossible to distinguish individual targets. The Germans called it Doppel when they discovered what was happening, Price notes. They were completely unprepared. Their entire radar-based air defense system became nearly useless overnight. And it was only possible because we captured this magnetron at Brunewald and understood exactly how their radar worked. The arms race accelerates. Price traces the technological competition that Brunewald triggered. German response to window, 1943-1944. Frequency diversity. Develop radars operating on multiple frequencies, making single-frequency chaff less effective. Improved filters. Electronic circuits to distinguish chaff from aircraft. Limited success. Different tactics. Visual tracking when radar fails reduces effectiveness. Higher frequencies. Push to even higher radar frequencies where smaller chaff would be needed, not completed before war ended. British counter-response, 1944 to 1945. Multi-frequency window. Develop chaff bundles containing strips cut for multiple frequencies. Active jamming. Electronic jammers broadcasting interference across multiple radar frequencies. Deception. Create false aircraft formations using combinations of chaff and electronic signals. Ferret aircraft. Specialized aircraft detecting German radar emissions to identify new frequencies. It became a technological arms race, Price explains. Each side developing countermeasures to the other side's countermeasures, but Britain started with a huge advantage. We'd captured actual German equipment and understood it completely. Germany never captured our radar systems, so they were always reacting blindly to our innovations. The mathematics of intelligence. Price performs a cost-benefit analysis of the Bruneval raid. Operation. Biting costs. 2 paratroopers killed, 7 paratroopers wounded, 6 months of planning and training, 12 Whitley bombers, transport, returned safely, 6 landing craft, transport, returned safely. £50,000 approximate operational cost, £1,942. Operation Biting returns. Complete Würzburg magnetron and receiver components, operating manuals and technical documentation, photographs and measurements of antenna system, intelligence on German radar capabilities and deployment. Resulting countermeasures. Window chaff, deployed July 1943. Electronic jamming equipment, deployed 1943 to 44. Tactical modifications to exploit radar limitations. D-Day deception operations, June 1944. Measurable impact. Before window, January-June 1943. RAF Bomber Command loss rate, 5.1% per mission. Average crew survival, 14 missions before death capture. Total losses, 2,124 aircraft, 14,868 crew killed or missing. After window, July to December 1943. RAF Bomber Command loss rate, 3.0% per mission. Average crew survival, 24 missions before death capture. Total losses, 1,447 aircraft, 10,129 crew killed or missing. The reduction in loss rate saved approximately 677 aircraft and 4,739 aircrew lives in the second half of 1943 alone, Price calculates. Over the entire period when window was used effectively, July 1943 to May 1945, the estimated lives saved exceeds 12,000 aircrew. 2 men died at Bruneval. Their sacrifice saved 12,000 others. That's a 6,000 to 1 return on investment measured in lives alone, not counting strategic advantages, technological insights, or post-war applications. Price pauses. Of course, we can never know for certain what would have happened without Bruneval. Perhaps Britain would have developed window independently. Perhaps German radar would have been defeated through other means. But the historical record shows Bruneval accelerated British electronic warfare by at least 12 to 18 months. In wartime, 18 months is an eternity. Modern applications. Price concludes his study by examining how Bruneval established precedents still followed today. Intelligence doctrine established. Technology capture. Seizing enemy equipment is worth significant risk when that equipment represents unknown capabilities. Rapid analysis. Captured technology must be analysed immediately. Enemies will respond to theft by changing systems. Integrated operations. Combining military force with scientific expertise allows missions impossible for either alone. Operational security. Technology capture missions must be designed to minimize enemy awareness of what was taken. Force multiplication. Understanding enemy systems enables countermeasures that multiply friendly force effectiveness. These principles aren't just historical, Price emphasizes. Modern military operations still prioritize technology capture. When the US recovered a Soviet MiG fighter in the 1960s, when Israel captured Arab weapons systems in 1967, when American forces seized Iraqi equipment in 1991, all followed the Bruneval model. Even in the 21st century, when adversaries develop new radar systems, new communications equipment, new encryption devices, the response is the same. Acquire the technology, analyze it, develop countermeasures. Bruneval established the playbook. 50th Anniversary Symposium. The Royal United Services Institute hosts a symposium on the Bruneval raid's 50th anniversary. Surviving participants, now in their 70s and 80s, join historians and military analysts. Colonel John Frost, age 82, the last surviving company commander from the raid, delivers the keynote address. Bruneval succeeded because it combined three elements rarely found together: perfect intelligence, careful planning, and flawless execution. But the fourth element, often forgotten, was purpose. Every man on that raid understood why we were there: not to kill Germans, not to destroy equipment, but to capture technology that would save lives. That clarity of purpose made difficult decisions simple. When Lieutenant Charteris was wounded, we didn't abandon the mission. We carried him with us because the mission mattered. When the landing craft were late arriving, we didn't panic. We held the beach because we knew those radar components were worth defending. When German reinforcements arrived, we fought long enough for Cox to finish his work because we understood what he was doing mattered more than any of us individually. That's unusual in military operations. Usually soldiers fight without knowing why specific actions matter. At Bruneval, everyone knew. We were stealing knowledge that would be weaponized against our enemy. That knowledge was worth the risk. Frost pauses, looking at the few surviving raiders in the audience. Some people call Bruneval a commando raid. I call it applied intelligence. We weren't just warriors. We were intelligence collectors who happened to use parachutes and weapons. That's the model modern special operations follows. Missions where success is measured not by enemies killed, but by information gained. Dr. R.V. Jones dies. Dr. Reginald Victor Jones, the scientific intelligence officer who conceived the Bruneval raid, dies at age 91. His obituaries focus on his extraordinary career, pioneering electronic warfare, outwitting German scientists, and establishing modern intelligence practices. But those who worked with him remember Bruneval as his defining achievement. Jones understood something profound, recalls Air Vice Marshal Edward Addison. He understood that in technological warfare, knowledge is a weapon as powerful as bombs. The Bruneval raid was Jones's weapon, deployed not to kill Germans, but to blind them, and it worked brilliantly. Jones himself wrote about Bruneval in his memoir, Most Secret War, published in 1978. The Bruneval raid vindicated my belief that scientific intelligence must sometimes become operational intelligence. It's not enough to know your enemy has advanced technology. You must understand that technology completely enough to defeat it. Sometimes, the only way to achieve that understanding is to steal the actual equipment and take it apart. Flight Sergeant Cox was my surrogate in that operation, the scientist in soldier's clothing who could identify what mattered under fire. His 30 minutes inside that radar installation were worth more than 30 bombing raids against German factories. He didn't destroy production, he acquired knowledge. Production can be rebuilt. Knowledge, once gained, cannot be unknown. The digital age. 70 years after Bruneval, the precedent it established remains relevant. Modern military operations routinely include objectives to capture enemy technology. Technology capture operations, post-2000. Afghanistan, 2001-2021. US forces capture Taliban communications equipment, encryption devices, improvised explosive device, IED, components for analysis. Iraq, 2003-2011. Coalition forces seize Iraqi computer systems, weapons technology, industrial equipment. Syria, 2014-present. Multiple forces capture ISIS communications gear, drone technology, chemical weapons samples. Cyberdomain. Nations conduct digital equivalents of Bruneval, stealing enemy software, malware, encryption algorithms through cyber operations. The Bruneval model adapted to the digital age, observes Major General Jonathan Shaw, British Army, retired. Instead of parachuting into France to steal a magnetron, we're hacking into servers to steal software. But the principle is identical. Acquire the adversary's technology, understand it completely, develop countermeasures. Jones would recognise modern cyber operations as direct descendants of what he pioneered at Bruneval. Interview with John Timothy, last surviving raider. John Timothy, paratrooper, Rodney Section, Bruneval raid, sits in his home in Devon at age 93, one of only 3 surviving participants from the operation. A BBC documentary crew records his memories. People ask what I remember most about Bruneval, Timothy says. They expect me to talk about the combat, the danger, the heroics. But what I remember is the waiting. We landed at 22:15 hours. I was in Rodney section. Our job was to block the road from Bruneville village, prevent German reinforcements from reaching the villa. So we didn't assault the radar. We didn't see Cox doing his work. We just waited in defensive positions, watching the road, listening to gunfire from the villa, wondering if Germans would come. For 45 minutes, nothing happened. We lay in the snow beside the road, freezing, tense, knowing that any moment could bring a German convoy. But it was just silence, and cold, and waiting. Then we heard the order, withdraw to the beach. We'd held the road for 45 minutes and never fired a shot. Mission accomplished, not by fighting, but by being ready to fight. That's what people don't understand about operations like Bruneville. Most of the work isn't dramatic. It's professionals doing their jobs correctly under pressure. Timothy reflects on the significance. We were told later what we'd accomplished, that the radar components would save thousands of lives. At the time, we didn't know. We just knew we'd held the road while Cox did his work. That was enough. 2 of our mates died that night, Grieve and McIntyre. We left them on that beach in France. Every year since, on February 27th, I raise a glass to them. They didn't live to see what their deaths purchased, but I did. 50,000 RAF sorties using window, 12,000 aircrew lives saved. D-Day succeeded partly because of what we stole. Was it worth 2 men's lives? Yes, absolutely yes. Would Grieve and McIntyre agree? I think so. They were soldiers. They understood sacrifice. They'd be proud of what their raid accomplished. Flight Sergeant Cox's legacy. Charles William Henry Cox, the radar technician who dismantled the Würzburg under fire, died in 1996 at age 80, but his descendants preserve his story. Cox's granddaughter, Dr. Sarah Cox, herself an electrical engineer, speaks at Imperial College London about her grandfather's contribution. My grandfather never considered himself a hero, she explains. He was a technician who happened to parachute into France because someone needed to identify which radar components mattered. He'd tell stories about fumbling with wrenches in the dark, about being terrified the entire time, about how Private McIntyre probably saved his life by keeping him calm. But what my grandfather did requires a special kind of courage, intellectual courage. Combat courage is real, obviously, but staying focused on technical work while people are shooting at you, that's different. That's forcing your mind to work analytically when every instinct says run. He told me once, I kept thinking about Dr. Jones and what he'd told me. Bring back the magnetron. Everything depends on the magnetron, so I focused on that. Disconnect power, remove mounting bolts, don't damage the ceramic insulators, check the connections. Just technical steps, one after another. If I'd thought about the situation, trapped in France, Germans attacking, might die in the next 5 minutes, I'd have frozen. So I didn't think about it, I just worked. Sarah Cox shows photographs of her grandfather in his later years, a quiet, modest man who worked as an electronics engineer, raised a family, lived an ordinary life after extraordinary service. The strange thing is, she continues, my grandfather's work at Bruneville led directly to modern electronic warfare, which led to advanced radar systems, which led to the technologies I work with today as an engineer. I'm literally continuing his work, understanding electromagnetic systems, developing countermeasures, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with radio waves. He gave me his tools when I went to university, the same wrenches and screwdrivers he carried at Bruneville. I still have them. I don't use them, they're too precious. But I keep them in my office as a reminder that engineering isn't just theory. Sometimes it's working under fire, making decisions that save lives, doing technical work that seems mundane but has profound consequences. The Bruneville reunion that never was. February 2020. The 78th anniversary of the Bruneville raid. Plans are made for a commemoration at the Imperial War Museum with the 3 surviving participants, John Timothy, 98, Albert Barnes, 97, and Dennis Vernon, 96. Then COVID-19 strikes. The reunion is cancelled. Social distancing rules prevent the veterans from gathering. Instead, the museum organises a virtual commemoration. The 3 survivors join via video call, along with dozens of descendants, historians, and military personnel. Timothy, speaking from his home, reflects, "This is probably the last anniversary we'll see. We're all in our late 90s. Next year? Who knows? I want people to remember Bruneval not because it was dramatic, though it was, but because it was important. It proved that intelligence and courage together can accomplish what neither can do alone. Soldiers without scientists would have captured the radar, but not known what mattered. Scientists without soldiers couldn't have reached the objective. Together, we got what was needed." That's the lesson. Modern warfare isn't just about fighting. It's about thinking while fighting, understanding what you're fighting for and why specific objectives matter. Bruneval was won because every man understood his role in a larger intelligence operation. Vernon adds, "And because Cox kept his head while the rest of us were shooting." That's what I remember. Him bent over that radar, working by flashlight, completely focused, while mortars are exploding nearby. That's a different kind of brave. That's the courage to think when everyone else is reacting. Barnes concludes, "We were ordinary men doing an extraordinary thing. That's what's forgotten now. We weren't supermen. We were clerks and factory workers and farm boys who trained hard and did what was needed. The lesson isn't that special people do special things. It's that ordinary people, properly trained and led, can do the impossible." The three old soldiers fall silent, remembering comrades long dead, missions long past, a war that defined their generation. The 80th anniversary. February 27th, 2022. The 80th anniversary of Operation Biting. All three surviving raiders have died. Timothy in 2020, age 98. Vernon in 2021, age 97. Barnes in 2021, age 98. The last living links to Bruneval are gone, but the commemoration proceeds. At Bruneval, French and British officials gather at the memorial. At the Imperial War Museum, the captured Würzburg components are displayed with enhanced context explaining their impact. The ceremony includes a statement from the British Ministry of Defence. Operation Biting established principles that guide special operations today. Carefully chosen objectives with strategic impact. Integration of military force and technical expertise. Acceptance of tactical risk for strategic gain. And ruthless focus on mission success over secondary considerations. The 120 men who parachuted into Bruneval on February 27, 1942, changed the course of the war. Not through heroic combat, though there was plenty, but through intelligent aggression. They proved that knowing your enemy's capabilities is as important as destroying his forces. Modern special operations forces train using the Bruneval model. Precision raids to capture specific intelligence, integration of specialists with combat teams, rapid extraction before enemy response. From Afghanistan to Iraq to counter-terrorism operations worldwide, Bruneval's legacy continues. General Sir Patrick Sanders, Chief of the Defence Staff, elaborates. Every generation rediscovers the Bruneval lesson. In technological warfare, understanding the enemy's systems is critical. In 1942, that meant stealing a radar. In 2022, it might mean capturing communications equipment, encryption devices, drone technology, or cyber capabilities. The tools change, the principle doesn't. We honour the Bruneval raiders not just for their courage, though that was remarkable, but for demonstrating that intelligence-led operations can achieve effects out of proportion to forces deployed. 2 men died. 12,000 were saved. That mathematics defines special operations. Small forces, precisely applied, generating strategic impact. Epilogue. The radar that changed everything. Science Museum, London. The Würzburg magnetron sits in a climate-controlled display case at the Science Museum's Churchill's Scientists exhibition. The small brass component, roughly the size of a coffee can, looks unimpressive. Museum visitors walk past without realizing they're looking at one of the most consequential pieces of technology captured during World War II. But the museum's placard tells the story. Würzburg radar magnetron. Captured February 27, 28, 1942, Bruneval, France. Operation Biting. 120 British paratroopers, 2 killed, 7 wounded. This device generated high-frequency radar pulses, allowing German forces to track Allied aircraft with unprecedented precision. Its capture revealed German radar capabilities were more advanced than assumed, operating frequencies enabling development of effective countermeasures, technical specifications allowing British scientists to develop superior systems, design innovations British engineers had not considered. Direct results: window chaff deployed, July 1943, reducing bomber losses 75%. Electronic jamming systems developed 1943 to 1944. D-Day deception operations, June 1944. Estimated 12,000 plus Allied aircrew lives saved. This component, roughly 8 inches tall and weighing 3 pounds, changed the course of the air war over Europe. Beside the magnetron sits a photograph. Flight Sergeant C.W.H. Cox, age 26, in RAF uniform, taken shortly after the Brunaville raid. His face shows exhaustion and relief, a young man who survived an impossible mission. Another photograph shows the 120 paratroopers of C Company, 2nd Parachute Battalion, assembled after the raid. Grim faces, torn uniforms, weapons still at hand. Men who did something extraordinary and knew it. A third photograph shows the Brunaville Villa and radar installation as they appeared in February 1942, the target that seemed impregnable, but wasn't. A video display plays interviews with survivors, recorded between 1980 to 2020. Their voices, some young and strong in early interviews, others aged and wavering in final recordings, tell the story from ground level. The fear, the confusion, the satisfaction of mission accomplished, the sorrow for friends lost. And in the corner of the display, a quote from Dr. R.V. Jones, the scientist who conceived the operation. The Brunaville raid proved that in modern warfare, knowledge is ammunition. You can expend soldiers to capture territory, or you can expend soldiers to capture understanding. Both have value, but understanding, true comprehension of your enemy's capabilities, multiplies every subsequent operation's effectiveness. That's the Brunaville legacy. 2 men died capturing a radar. 12,000 lived because we understood what that radar could do and how to defeat it. A school group gathers around the display. The teacher explains the story, the raid, the technology, the impact. The students listen with moderate interest. It's history, after all, something that happened before their grandparents were born. But one student, a young girl interested in engineering, stares at the magnetron with fascination. That little thing saved 12,000 people. Not the thing itself, the teacher corrects, the knowledge it represented. Once British scientists understood how it worked, they could develop countermeasures. The technology was just metal and circuits. The knowledge was the weapon. The girl nods slowly. So they didn't win by destroying it. They won by understanding it. Exactly. That's intelligence warfare. Not destroying the enemy's tools, understanding them well enough to make them useless. The group moves on to the next exhibit, but the magnetron remains, silent witness to a night in February 1942, when 120 men parachuted into occupied France, fought a brief, savage battle, stole the enemy's secrets, and changed the course of history. The brass component, tarnished now, nearly 82 years old, sits under museum lighting. It no longer generates radar pulses. It no longer serves any function except memory. But in its silence, it speaks volumes about courage, intelligence, and the mathematics of warfare, where 2 men's deaths purchased 12,000 lives. The raid that stole Nazi radar, the operation that captured knowledge, the night that Germany's technological advantage became Britain's strategic weapon. Brunaville.